Hello everyone, welcome to the BA Skills. I'm Rupam. I'm currently working as a business analyst and I am recently certified with an ECVA provided by IIBA. In this video, we're gonna look how SDLC process is defined and how a business analyst would work in all of these stages and what are his or her uh, activities or act during each stage of software development lifecycle. The software development life cycle starts from planning, defining, designing, building, testing, and deployment. So it starts with planning and ends at deployment, and then coming back to planning again. Every stage is interlinked with the previous stage so that each steps are defined clearly at the stages when coming to project management kind of approach. As a business analyst, software development lifecycle is very important to understand at what stages uh, the performance or the activities need to be performed as a business analyst, and also to be aware of what are the contribution to be made as a business analyst at every stage of the SDLC. We will go this whole SDLC process with an example considering a project, and let's see how business analyst defines his or her activities at every stage, and let's see how the project would move from one stage to next stage. Let's start with a particular project that is coming into picture. So I'm just taking an example which says the project gets starts here. So the project can be an online bookstore. Okay, let's consider that project is an online bookstore that we need to build an application. Basically, the application is defined as an e-commerce website. So e-commerce website need to be built for a bookstore which is currently offline. So what is the need of the project is we need an e-commerce website to be built from the company or for the client whose bookstore is currently offline and need his bookstore to be on brought online using e-commerce website. Now the point here is project starts at the stage where the requirements before even requirements are gathered where the needs are identified, where the client approach towards the company for based on his need or a problem statement, and then company provides them a proper guidance and support. Okay, whether they are capable of doing it or not. Now, at this stage, the project is already brought in by the sponsor in the team, and that's the reason we are directly into STLC. Considering that all the approvals, all the budget, timeline, uh, the location, everything is already been defined from the board members or the management team. But considering in this case, we are just getting into a next step, that is, project is in the team now, and you as a business analyst, how would interact with this project at every stage of STLC. So the project has started, and the need is to build an e-commerce bookstore. Now, during planning session, basically, let me just bring this up here. Okay, so during planning session of the e-commerce website, what are the major things that have been discussed? See, planning is a stage where the requirements are not collected fully. This is the stage where the capabilities, the problem, uh, the the expected solution or the outcome is identified. So basically, identification of needs, okay, problem, and expected outcome is known by a business analyst as well as project manager. And this stage is where the business analyst would not put his 100%, but rather, let's say, 50% of his understanding, getting more knowledge on what is actually needed from the perspective of client and how well we can define it, and what are the needs, expected outcomes, are very much make sure we are getting clarity. What happens after this stage is definitely the company itself would able to understand whether they have capacity, to do the project, and then what are the available resources. So capacity, then you got resource availability, and then your technology you're going to use, and the structure. And then you also need to understand how what is a deadline, and what are your limitations. So the point here comes where the capacity, resource, technology, structure, deadlines, and limitations are calculated and are actually defined correctly, not by business analysts, but also with help of project managers, development heads, some of the key stakeholders within the company. And every project is basically defined with all those, whether we are able to capable of doing it within deadline, um, if we are capable of getting when overcoming our limitations, as well as what kind of technology would be very much satisfied and are capable of doing it. Everything is well planned. Now, during planning, business analysts act as a basic, what you can say, kind of a role which would work in identifying more needs rather than rather than deciding what technology need to be used, what deadlines are, what are limitations. Those are more probably done by project managers. But coming to needs, expected outcomes, understanding the business domain, right? Everything comes at that stage. So now, as a business analyst, you would definitely coming to a picture where you want yourself to understand what is a business doing, business domain knowledge, domain knowledge understanding, and currently going through documents and do a market analysis. Not even say market analysis, but just an analysis of what is the system, or sorry, what is the current client's business is, what his domain, and what are the documents related to those business, as well as what kind of analysis you're going to go through to understand the problem or the outcome that is expected from business. Then comes to the next stage where the projects under defining. Now, when coming to defining of a project, definitely at this stage, the the process is more of requirement gathering. Okay. So requirement gathering is the most valuable concept within this defining, where BA puts his 100%, his or her 100% in defining every requirement gathered and basically act upon it. Now, requirement gathering doesn't happen immediately. I mean, it doesn't happen in one day or like within quicker way of version. Rather, it happens based on iterations as we are working in agile, and also every requirement what is captured is signed off, as well as requirement that is defined is a requirement that is collected, that is correctly defined, and has a clear idea about that requirement. So the reason is, so consider we are at a case study now. Coming back to the case study concept, what we are thinking of is like, okay, this is the stage and where you have like, okay, you need to build an e-commerce website which acts as a correct source for getting things like, okay, adding value to the current market, as well as defining, okay, how would be the UI look like, and do we need login page or not? Do we need to do customers need to sign up every time? Does they can sign up or make a payment through an UPI payment, or anything that is relevant to a picture where it shows, okay, this is what the actual requirement can be defined there, where every requirement clarity is there. And each of those requirement gathering sessions are done with the stakeholders and where business analysts are more responsible in defining each of the requirement and having a clear idea about what exactly is the requirement state. Now let's say let's take some few examples. Okay. Now you might ask questions to the clients or the stakeholders whenever you are in the defining stage or requirement gathering stage, that what would be the login page uh, collects information, or how would be people or customers register themselves. So these are some of the questions which can be asked by the users, sorry, by the business analyst to in case of users working or getting onto the website and looking for different books. You can also ask similar kind of questions such as what are the categories that need to be shown on the website. Now, based on the categories, user would able to choose their appropriate books, right? And it will be good for them to categorize as well as get more clarity on the website, and it will be a good user journey. See, this is all some of very basic examples. I'm not going into deep because I need to cover every step, but these are some of very simple, you can say, kind of exercise, which will help you to understand, okay, what is defining. So here the requirements are collected, and these are done on iterations, basically more to like to sign off, which are like to sign off, and are defined and has a clear idea about that requirement. Now, one more thing comes here at defining stage. You are responsible to store this particular kind of requirement. Now, where do you store that? Basically, whatever information you are collecting, that need to be having recorded at some or other place. Let's say Excel for now, or a spreadsheet for now. So whatever I am recording or whatever I have did, I'm just recording them on Excel so that I'm creating like a requirement traceability metrics or some other kind of template that will help me to define my requirements clearly. Now, once the requirements are collected and defined, okay, then you probably get into more of like doing a process of uh, designing. Now, when designing comes into picture, designing as per the BA would act as something like this. I'll help you once again. Okay, let's go here and bring over this here. Okay, this is good. Now, defining. What does exactly designing mean? So designing is not that we design some um, flow charts or just a wireframe. It's more over like modeling. Now, what does modeling means? It comes from various stages and it has more likely to be having documents such as BRD, FRD, SRS. Then you got all other what you can say kind of flows UMLs, right? And those UMLs can be flowcharts, wireframes. Then you got your swim lanes and many more. So the reason we are doing here is also defining use case diagram, matrix, maps, and other templates. Now all these are recorded and are and most of them comes under designing stage. Now, what is the percentage that BA would give 50% on designing, because whatever wireframes you create, depending on the wireframes only, developers build those UIs, right? Whatever flowcharts you basically create to show the process would be acting as a kind of process flow diagrams for the users to understand, okay, from where the data flows from one stage to another stage. Use case diagrams, matrix, all the templates, whatever are modeled, are definitely a part of like a reference for developers to work on. Now, once these are clearly defined, then the picture comes is to have a sign off. Now, the sign off is most what kind of a basic step or mandatory step, I would say, to get everything signed off from the user's perspective. I'm not sure if I can add user, but let's see. This is a user. Now, with respect to user's perspective, the sign off need to be happen at every stage, and that where the versions of your documents comes out. And once the sign off is completed, that means the requirement is accurate, requirement is verified, reviewed, and then the development can start on that method. Now coming to building stage, once the requirements are signed off, this come the point comes where we need to understand whether we need to do it in uh, what method we need to follow when we build or when we start working on development. The methods can be a waterfall, right? As well as a method can be uh, an agile, correct? So consider a waterfall method and agile method. Now you might be having something like, okay, if we have like agile method, yes or no, let's say like waterfall method, yes, then waterfall, then no, then agile. Now the point is, why are we actually looking into agile or waterfall at this stage? Once the requirements are enough, we need to work on um, each step more frequently, and we are clearly defining, okay, what needs to be done at what stage, right? So that's where the point comes where we need to define what stage or what kind of method we are following. Definitely will not involve waterfall now, but let's say we are working in agile. Now when working in agile, you completely work on a sprint method, right? So you have scrum coming in here. So Scrum is a methodology again within Agile, which helps a developer to track his progress via doing work in a sprint, and that's where the Scrum board, that is the sprint board, comes into picture. Now this is your sprint backlog, right? Now this is your sprint backlog where all the requirements brought into sprint backlog and are now ready to prioritize. Where the Scrum Master is the person who acts or takes the inputs from here and work on the sprint planning, and then it goes to different stages, which I will be covering in next video, but not now. So consider we are under sprint backlog, and that's where the next steps comes, that is the sprint planning. Or let's say this is a sprint board, Scrum board. Okay, Scrum board, and this board helps basically helps the developers to work on the process or work on the user stories which are defined within this board, and this would have a list of user stories which comes into picture, and that's where it helps a particular person to come and get involved in the steps. So I don't want to include or don't want to involve a scrum board here, so that's where I want to stop for now and get the next steps coming into that with the scrum in the next video. So stay tuned for this video and please watch the part 2 as well. Thanks.